Hey, welcome to the podcast. Sit back, relax. Try not to throw nothing at me because you won't hurt my feelings. You'll just hurt your computer. This podcast is brought to you by your host, me, Robert McCune. All right, let's get this thing on the road. I got a few things to cover with you today. So, first thing, Bill Maher, the far left talk show host sponsored on HBO, thinks Biden should bump Kamala Harris from the Democrat ticket in 2024, saying, I think she's just a bad politician. During a panel discussion Friday night, he addressed the paradox among Democrats who approve of Biden's job as president, yet don't want him to run in 2024. Can't say I blame him. Maher insisted that Biden's not giving it up. He says once you have real estate in the White House, it's very hard to take away the nomination from the sitting president. Just ask Mr. Trump. Now, Maher's always been a far left extremist as far as liberalism goes. But since the Democrats have taken office, I wouldn't say Maher's been leaning to the right, but he is a lot more center than he's ever been in his life. Okay, moving on to another topic here. The Associated Press reports from Hartford, Connecticut, citing a U.S. Supreme Court decision earlier this year, gun rights groups and firearms owners have launched another attempt to overturn Connecticut's ban on certain semi-automatic rifles. This was enacted in a response to the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. A new lawsuit was filed Thursday in federal court by three gun owners, the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, and the Second Amendment Foundation. They're seeking to overturn the state's prohibition on what they call modern sporting arms. Holly Sullivan, president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, said in a statement, "We all deserve to live in safe communities, but denying ownership of the most commonly owned firearms in the country is not the way to achieve it." And the recent U.S. Supreme decision has opened the door to this challenge, and we believe Connecticut will be hard-pressed to prove its statutes are constitutional. And on the other side of the coin, state officials vowed to defend the 2013 gun laws. State Attorney General William Hung said in a statement, "Connecticut gun laws save lives, and we're not going back." He says this like they're going to have a choice if the court rules against them, which I think they will. I don't think this is constitutional. Well, he goes on to say, "We will not allow weapons of war to enter our schools, our houses of worship, our grocery stores, and our communities. I will vigorously defend our laws against any and every one of these baseless challenges." Yeah, it's only the Constitution, you idiot. Well, it looks like Connecticut's going to get a dose of reality now that the courts can only apply text, history, and tradition when deciding Second Amendment cases. That's right, no more two-step approach, which is what the liberal courts have used to allow tyrannical states to take rights away from their people. See, in the second step, courts would take into account the feelings in the interest of public safety approach on behalf of the state. That's what I like to call the two-step around the Constitution. Well, in the New York versus Bruin case, the Supreme Court ruled the courts could no longer do the two-step around the Constitution, and only a one-step test should be used. So, what the states impose would have to align with text, history, and tradition. Text means the language as written within the framing of the Second Amendment. The history means it has to be based on the year 1791, and tradition means if it didn't happen then, it can't happen now. Like sensitive places. The only places that was restricted back in 1791 to around 1800 were courthouses, government legislative buildings, and schools. Now, schools are interesting. Back then, only students were restricted from carrying firearms. The teachers and any other adults were not. So that ought to drive the liberal hive mind nuts if somebody brings that lawsuit. As far as AR-15s is concerned, no, we didn't have them back in 1791, as many liberals like to remind us. But the court's already set precedent saying no weapons in common use can be banned from public use. And the AR-15 is one of the most owned and used guns in America. So I say, good luck, Connecticut. You're going to take another loss in the 2A column. Okay, let's hop over to New York. If everything goes according to plan, the sale of all gas-powered cars will be banned in New York by 2035. The announcement made by Governor Kathy Hochul, Later Hochul, says the state wants 35% of new cars to be zero emission by 2026 and 60 by 2030. All new school buses must be zero emissions by 2035, and a public hearing will be held before the rules are implemented. So that just means they'll let people talk for a little bit and then just go ahead and do it anyways, because that's all that really means. This decision comes after California voted to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars starting in 2035. Man, these two try to be two peas in a pot, California and New York. If New York implements something, California turns around and does it, and vice versa. They just copy one another. California hasn't changed its name by now to New California. Speaking of that other place, California Governor Gruesome Newsom signed the State Legislative Assembly Bill 2799, also known as the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act. Jesus, that's a mouthful too. Well, this law prevents the use of rap lyrics in all prosecutions. In a statement about the bill, said Sonia's Dana Laporte, for far too long, prosecutors in California has been using rap lyrics as a convenient way to inject racist bias and confusion into the criminal justice process. How dare they? What do they think they are? Attorneys? Well, if it isn't an attorney, it's a politician getting their hand caught in a cookie jar. This is where we're all are heading as a society, I suppose. And that said, in other news, a prominent politician caught stealing from a major grocery chain. A now former Palmer City Council candidate was recently caught stealing from the food market chain Wegmans in the Onondaga County area. I didn't think I'd get that. Onondaga. Wow, I got it twice. The alleged perpetrator, I like that. The alleged perpetrator was reported to have stolen more than $400 worth of grocery items. After a brief investigation by the police, they found that this was the former councilman's third arrest for this type of offense. Third arrest! No, my mother always said if a politician wasn't a crook when they enter office, they will be when they leave. This statement is as true as the day is long. Okay, here's an article from the Associated Press. 9 NATO members urge support for Ukraine after annexation. In Prague, the heads of 9 European NATO members on Sunday issued a joint statement backing a path to membership for Ukraine in the U.S.-led security alliance and calling on all 30 nations, NATO nations, to ramp up military aid for Kiev. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made a surprise move Friday to apply for fast-track NATO membership in response to Russia's annexation of 4 of their regions in Ukraine. Now, NATO membership needs approval from all 30 members, and Ukraine is unlikely to join anytime soon. Being a country already at war complicates the request. The 9 NATO countries in Central and Eastern Europe fearful that Russia would target them next if the war isn't stopped. So the leaders of Chechnya, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia published a statement on their website Sunday saying, "We support Ukraine in its defense against Russia's invasion and demand that Russia immediately withdraws from all the occupied territories and encourage all allies to increase their military aid to Ukraine." Okay, moving on. I have an article here from the list, and it goes on to say, Lauren Bobart's life is a genuine rags to riches story. The daughter of a teen single mom, Bobart herself became pregnant in high school and dropped out in order to work at McDonald's to support her family. She quickly realized she could provide better for herself than the government ever could. I wish a lot of Americans read this story. So she went on to a career in the gas industry, sometime after McDonald's, apparently. And she went on to marry and to have three more children. Bobart and her husband at one time owned a restaurant called Shooter's Grill, unique for its proud open carry gun policy. And for those who's not familiar with Shooter's Grill, it's out in Colorado. Well, in 2020, despite having no political experience, the Colorado mom ran for a seat in the state's 3rd congressional district. Now, little extra comment here from me. I've been to Shooter's Grill. All the waitresses, the cooks, every one of the staff, they're all packing heat. And in Colorado, it's an open carry state, so it's on full display on their hip. So I guess if you're going to complain in that place, you literally take your life in your own hands. Bobart said in a statement via Colorado Public Radio, Colorado deserves a fighter who will stand for freedom, who believes in America, and who is willing to take on the left-wing lunatics. Oh, I loved her. Who are trying so hard to ruin this country. Right on, sister. She goes on to say, we're in a battle for the heart and soul of our country. Sure enough, she won the seat that November, and now she's back on the campaign trail hoping to be voted into another term. She's already off to a really good start, having won the Republican primary in June. But a comment she made during a recent rally is drawing criticism. Hey, show of hands, who wants to talk about Jimmy Carter? Okay, sure. So I got an article right here, just so happens to be about Jimmy Carter. It's really small. So Jimmy Carter sets a new world record for the longest living president. He just turned 98 years old. Happy birthday, Jimmy. Have a peanut. On his 98th birthday, Jimmy Carter once again set a new world record as the longest living United States president. He has held the title since March of 2019, months after the previous title holder, President George H.W. Bush, died at the age of 94. Now, President Carter may have only led the nation for 4 years, but in the 4 decades that have followed his White House tenure, he has managed to leverage his place in history to help others, both domestic and abroad. The Carter Center, founded by Jimmy and Rosalind Carter in 1982, has been aiding in a wide range of humanitarian efforts for 40 years now. Hey, that just about does it, but I have one more. As a new term starts, Supreme Court is poised to resume rightward push. Wonder what this one's about. So the justices return to the bench today to start a term that will include major cases on affirmative action, voting, and discrimination against gay couples. Several of them will actually take on questions about race. The last Supreme Court term ended with a series of judicial bombshells in June that eliminated the right to abortion, established a right to carry guns outside the home, and a limited effort to address climate change. As the justices return to the bench, there are a few signs that the court's race to right is slowing. So the new term will feature major disputes on affirmative action, voting, religion, free speech, and gay rights. And the court's six-justice conservative supermajority seems poised to dominate the new term as it did in the earlier one. On things that matter most, said Iva Gorstein, the executive director of the Supreme Court Institute at Georgetown Law, get ready for a lot of 6-3s. All right, folks, that's all I got for you on this episode. Join me on the next one. So, this is the point in time where I tell you, hit the subscribe button, give me the thumbs up, and don't be afraid to ring my bell. Stay frosty, stay cool. Talk to you when I talk to you.